Hello, Chocy Chat. Right, we're episode 146. It's the 16th of August. Hello, everybody. I'm a minute late, aren't I? Am I a minute late? No, I'm not a minute late. Lights are on. Put that light on. I was having a chat with Mrs. So Sassy and got a bit carried away with it. We were talking about families and bits and pieces like that. You know how it goes. Interesting conversations. Good evening, good evening. Who have we got? We got Scottish Chocolates. Alex Eats. Hello. Ron's Bonbons. Then Philadelphia, aren't you? Uniontown. Stuart the Blind Chocolatier. Coat of Chocolates. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Who else have got? Kelly's there. Andrew, Styling Chocolates. Kelly, Chocolates by Loney. Hello, hello, hello. Chocolate Lily there in Florida. Sophia So Sassy's joined. Hello, you. There's Chocolates by Neander. How's everybody doing? Reese, Darren Jones up there in Scotland, I think. Channel Island Chocolates. Got everybody's tuning in tonight. So, Mrs. So Sassy's joined us. How is everybody doing? So, good week for everybody. I can see there's lots of people posting some amazing stuff this week. So, the weather's right for chocolate here because it kind of feels like winter and the temperatures are quite cool actually. So I think people I talk to a lot of businesses and they're doing okay, ticking over. I think it's fair to say the chocolatiers that are kind of all well established are kind of drip feeding orders through. So online sales and wholesale orders, all those kind of bits and pieces. So definitely encouraging. Definitely encouraging. So, DD Chocolatier, We're All Lass, how are you? Violet Ribbon, I haven't spoken to you for a long time. I'm going to send some waves out. So, I did a couple of posts this week. I'm going to tell you about some chocolates. This absolutely amazing brand here called, can't read it because it's back to front, but it's Cow, yeah, C-O-A. And then also, I wanted to show you, how nice is that? Billy made me this. How absolutely amazing. This is being resin printed, so it's a little bar, but how cool is that? I'm so chuffed to have that as an iconic piece of furniture to go on my shelf there. Brings out the colour of the colours, look, doesn't it? Oil Bakes, hello, how are you? So we've got lots of names here. I'm going to send some waves out, some hellos out. So I did a couple of posts this week. One of them, it's one I did the other day, and it was to do with just scraping that layer, and it prompted quite a few questions. So I think I would just explain about that a little bit. Also, I want to just talk to everybody. Let's kind of get something recorded tonight that feels like a little bit of a game plan towards looking at December, Halloween, what are we going to do, what are we not going to do, what will be the right thing to do. I talk to hundreds and hundreds of businesses through classes, through different bits and pieces. And it's kind of what sells, what doesn't sell, and kind of what should we do about, like, you know, we're in mid-August, it's the 16th of August. 6-8 weeks, we're going to be straight back into it. It is going to be chocky making time. By the time we get to kind of mid-November, sales should be piling through, right? So, I'm just going to scroll. Paula's there. Hello, Chocolate Art UK. Kenneth there, up in Scotland. Paula up in Ilkley. So, first things first, this one. Get them on. Oh, I've got new moulds this week. Nice new shiny moulds. Exactly the same as the other ones. All the same. In plast moulds. It is, before anybody asks, 539. I like the one with the straight-sided domes because you've got new packaging coming for those. So I did a post which seemed to prompt quite a few questions because whether I described it rightly or wrongly, or people didn't read the description that was in it. And it was about tapping bubbles out. And I think a lot of you probably heard me say this before. It's obviously a new bowl as well because I pulled the sticker off it. So I'm not talking about going from a machine. I would get chocolate into this, so from the melting tank, whatever, we get it to 33 degrees, put the silk in, give it a good blend with a stick blender or a whisk or what have you. Once that reaches 32, I would shell. So that's kind of how silk works, right? And this is really for the home producers. If you're using a bowl, so whether you're seeding, whether you're using silk, whether you're using micro, it's all a similar process, right? what I often do is we will heat the chocolate to 36, 37 and then put it into here because it cools down to 33 quite quickly. If I was using micro, we'd do it at 34. Once the chocolate's into there, I'm going to tap the bubbles out here. If I get the bubbles out the chocolate here, I don't have to do quite as much of this, okay? So we get the bubbles out here, right? And this is the best trick. We get the bubbles out here. You're not trying to burst the bubbles, you're just trying to get them to come to the surface. Once they do come to the surface, so we'll tap them out in the bowl, okay? Keep that one upright and you'll be able to burst those bubbles. Tapping it is the same as on the mould. We're not trying to burst the bubbles, we're just trying to get the bubbles to come to the surface or come into the centre. So it's not so much tapping, it's more vibrating. If we tap the bowl, the bubbles will come upwards, right? That's all we're trying to do. Get the bubbles out at this stage. Then when you pour, the mess that you make comes from too much chocolate landing on this, because the only place it can go, quite obviously, is over the side. So slowing down, like we've taken all this time to paint and decorate, and we've cleaned it and wiped it down and it's all lovely. The shelling bit's purely mechanical, but you don't want to be in a hurry because you need to do this really, really well, because this will be the integrity of the shell with the filling that you've made, right? So we would fill that really, really carefully. Okay, so whether you do it with the ladle or whether you pour it, totally up to you. What I would then do is I will just move it round and try and keep everything within that. I'm trying not to, like when I'm pouring the chocolate in there, I'm going along that line, right? I'm not going across here, I'm going on that inside line. So it pours inwards out to the edge. I'm going to try and keep it within that, okay, not make too much mess. Before I start tapping, if you put too much chocolate on here and you start tapping, it is all going to go over the edge and it's going to be a horror story, right? Silicone mats, or you can scrape this straight back in. But before I start tapping, all I will do, and it's a really, really good, we'll just angle it down a little bit, slide everything off, and it will leave you a lovely clean surface. Then you start tapping. And you don't need to tap hard, you just need to tap regularly. All we're trying to do is vibrate the chocolate so that the air bubbles come to the surface. We're not trying to burst them, you're not going to be able to burst them. Just keep tapping. But if you get all the bubbles out here before you put them in here, you won't need to do as much there. And I tell you what, it is a lot easier to get the bubbles out of here than it is on there. So if we've got, the warmer the chocolate is, the more fluid the chocolate is, the less bubbles. This is why 4-drop chocolate works so nice for so many people. 4-drop chocolate doesn't trap as much air, whereas a 3-drop, and I hope nobody's ever tried it, but if you try shelling with a 2-drop chocolate, even when you turn it upside down, it's still stuck in the mould and it's just, it won't come out. You've got massive air pockets, so you've got to start stabbing. So 4-drop chocolate's really, really good because it doesn't trap much air. If we're shelling at 32, I use silk. So it would be a melting tank, we'll melt it to 35, 36, we'll put it in a bowl. When it reaches 32, we'll blend the silk in there. And then we'll pour it on. So get the air bubbles out that, get the air, like I said, get the air bubbles out here first, then pour. Get rid of that first layer first, okay? So that you've just got a nice clean cavity. And I think you can see that on the video if you have a look back, because I was doing it in the bar molds, which are, but the surface of that is absolutely spotlessly clean. Then we tap that, then we tap everything out, and you've got a clean surface. What's important is, the cleaner this surface is, once you've made the shells, the easier it is to cap with, and the cleaner the capping is. You will always get a little bit of residue. I explained this the other week, that once everything's kind of been turned out, providing everything has come out, and these are all these cavities are nice and clean, all we'll do is just warm that with a blowtorch, with a heat gun, not a heat gun, with a hairdryer. Okay, and then we'll give that a really good wipe off. I won't touch any of those cavities. We'll just go back in and we'll go straight back in and spray, decorate, and go again. That'd be a massive time saver come the Christmas thing. So I hope that cleared that up. There's a lot of questions, and people said, like, so do I tap the air bubbles before or after, or, but exactly as I've just shown there. So was there any questions there? Good evening, Chrissy. There's lots of new names here. If you're new here, you've got a chance to ask questions. Tapping the bubbles in the bowl is brilliant. Yeah, do you know, they're all obvious things. They are all obvious things, right? Hi Ellen. They are all obvious things. And they're just little things that I recognise, like kind of going through and making chocolate myself. There's still little tasks that I do, and it helps me. I don't want to make lots of, if I don't make mess, I don't have lots of mess to clean up. I think that's a kind of key point. So I got sent some lovely chocolates this week from, these have come from Kuwait, and the brand is called Cow. So I'll show you what they look like, because there's none left. Some lovely little lady. Oh, the smell of that when it came out. This is one of my first ever students, and I've got to say, this is the bag that they came in. They sent us these down to try, right? You know how good they were is that they've all gone, which is just shocking. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. It's been a long time since I've had, because there's no colours. It's literally, they are, it's kind of all brown chocolate, so it's all natural chocolate, no colourings. Lots of good textures in there, lots of pistachio, lots of croquant, lots of little bits of sugar in there. Absolutely nailed the flavour, absolutely incredible. So we were sat scoffing those, and it's like, oh, I meant to share them. We get sent lots of chocolate, which we're incredibly grateful for. The majority of it is absolutely, truly, truly amazing. Because we get so much chocolate, it's very, very hard to decipher, you know, whose do we like, but just occasionally we do get some that just absolutely leave me speechless. So yeah, they are absolutely, so Haya that makes those, Koa chocolate, they're based in Kuwait, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely amazing. There's a question here, good evening. Scraping any excess cocoa butter off the top of the mould, do you bin or keep it? Glyn, do you mean the coloured cocoa butter? If I'm spraying, I'll answer this one. Recovering the cocoa butter is an important thing, right? Oh no, there's an airbrush gone down the back now. If I'm spraying, so overspray, I guess you're talking about, I guess that you are talking about coloured cocoa butters. If I'm spraying, overspray is where it doesn't land in that centre as it lands everywhere else, right? So it's hard to control overspray because it depends how wide that arcs go, but you do need to recover it. If we're back spraying, what we'll do is we'll put a sheet of silicone paper down, not the silicone mats, it's quite hard to get that off there. We'll put a sheet of paper down. If we're spraying heavily, back spraying or something, and we've got a lot of colour, we'll just scrape off the excess. If you tilt that down at an angle and give it a good scrape, you can recover what drops down. It gets complicated when you've got multiple colours going on. So like if you've got that, you know, if you've got red in there and then you back spray it, when you scrape it, you end up with white with red mixed in it. So you have to be very, very careful. But I would always scrape the moulds down and then we will give them a wipe on a blue cloth. When we're using the big, turbine with the great big spray gun, we will scrape off all the excess because the overspray on that is absolutely chronic. It's fast because I can do 30-40 moulds in 15 minutes, probably less. So it sprays huge volume, it's a massive power, but there's a lot of overspray. Overspray is where just excess lands on the mould. Mist that's going up in the air, that's a very, very different thing, and that's controlled with pressure. But yeah, overspray, yeah, we will always try and recover what we can and scrape that off. I know some chocolatiers don't mind putting that back into the chocolate. It's up to you what you want to do. It's cocoa butter. Where I have excess shells, where we make a lot of shells, where we're testing colours, we will melt that down and you can't see the colours. They just completely disappear just because the volume that's there, it's hardly measurable. So, Dolce Mara there down in South Africa. Hello, hello. Send some waves out. Who else he's got? Was that Glyn? Did that answer that? I think so. Probably. Yeah. You said thank you. You're welcome. All right. Evening, Belfast Bakehouse. How are you? Who else you got? Salam. Wa alaikum salam in Bahrain. Who else got? People all over the planet tonight. People from all over the shop. Chocolate Seller. How are you? There's a few names. There's lots of new names here, but there's some people that lots of people that I recognise. So. If it's your first go on Chocy Chat, welcome. I've got to show that off again. Chocy Chat crew. Very, very cool, Billy, that. Very, very, very cool. Oh, Ariel, anyone else experienced extra thick caliber 811? No. No, if anything, the one I've got here I felt was a little bit too fluid. It could be moisture that's got into the bag. I would, if the chocolate's really, really thick, I would heat it up quite a little bit higher. You know, I'd heat it up to kind of 42, 43 and just see whether that makes any difference to it. If it gets down to kind of 33 and it's very, very thick, I would suggest there's moisture in that bag. In which case I would just use that for fillings, right? I wouldn't try shelling with that. So I like a soft caramel filling. If I only heat it to 130 Fahrenheit, will I get a soft caramel, but not sure if it lasts as well. Don't know what 130, what's 130 in centigrade? Somebody, is that 38? No, it's 42, isn't it that? No. What's 130 Fahrenheit in centigrade? 130 Fahrenheit is not very high to get a caramel. Depends how you're making the caramel. Is that a wet caramel? Is that a dry caramel? Generally speaking, I'll talk to you in centigrade. Don't use Fahrenheit ever. Too inaccurate for me. If we will cook a caramel generally above 176 centigrade, which is, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, then we'll deglaze it with the cream. Then when we bring it back to the boil, we'll take it to about 107, 108, depending on what I'm making. But just by boiling it over 104, you're getting rid of the majority of the water in it with the caramel. How soft it is, well, the higher you cook it, the harder that caramel is going to get. And obviously, shelf life is not just the cooking point, it's the food hygiene, the storage, what other ingredients are in there, what fat content was in there. It's a mix of so many things, right? 54, 130 is 54. 54 centigrade doesn't sound very hot to me. Chocolate creams, hello. Right, Christmas. Let's have a talk about Christmas. Let's have a serious talk about Christmas, because we're on. I'm going to put that one away. We're on the 16th of August, right? So we've got 4 weeks. 4 weeks to mid-September. 4 weeks time, mid-September. Middle of October, probably, like, you should have by now. You should have, and this is really about documenting stuff. So what I wanted to do just on this one, because I'm gonna save this with the tagline when I post this a little bit later on. It's more of a Christmas chat. I said earlier in the year, when you finish Christmas, you should have documented everything. I've got some questions to answer there. So I said earlier in the year, like back in February time, January, February time, you need to be documenting what went well. So you document what went well in terms of planning for this Christmas. So, and it starts off right now, I would be thinking about documenting my recipes, so, and costing them, and then thinking about labels as well. And those three things tie into each other. If I took a bag of chocolate, let's get a bag of chocolate. Let's get a bag of chocolate. 823. It's an empty bag, by the way. It's a demo bag. So we'd want to, like on a Word document or whatever you've got, what I'd start doing is start listing all my chocolate. So if I've got caliber 811, 823, WW2, and then go through all your chocolates and give them each one a heading on a Word document. And then under each one, I'd start writing what ingredients are in it. So skimmed milk, lecithin, cocoa mass, all that. So I do that for every single one, because you might find some have got salt in, some have got other kind of bits and pieces in it. Then what I do is I try and work out what 10 grams is and what 100 grams is. So next to that on that document, I'd have 10 gram price. So what's the price for 10 grams and what's the price for 100 grams? Because this will relate to your recipes later on. Then I start documenting my recipes. So where we'd make a caramel, like how much, you know, what's the volume of cream, what's the volume of sugar, what's the volume of salt, what's the weight of salt. So those volumes, same as with ganaches. If I've got the weight of it and I've got all my products in another document that I've got the price per 10 grams or 1 grams or 100 grams, I can actually start making up my costs really, really easily. And this is kind of homework that you should be doing during the quiet months, right? And they're rough prices. They don't have to be exact. You might get towards the end of the year and cream's a little bit cheaper, or sugar's a little bit cheaper, or you buy a bigger amount of sugar and you get a better price on it. What we're looking for is a rough idea of price. How much does that mould takes? That mould takes around about 58 to 60 grams of chocolate shell. Okay, so I can work out what the shell costs. If I've got, if I'm shelling it with 823 and I know what 10 grams costs, I'll be able to work out 290 grams. We'd probably call it 300 grams for wastage, right? But that would be 300 grams, sorry, that would be 58 to 60 grams of that. So that's I get my shell price. I'd have my price for a caramel. I know how much the caps weigh because I can just I can weigh that, okay, and zero the scales, cap, and then lift that back on, and then just track backwards. So it'll give me a weight of the caps as well. These are all little things that you should be doing now, so that you can actually start costing up. What you don't want to do is do a huge collection and then have to sit down and start working every single thing out, because that just takes ages. If you've got your chocolates all listed so that you can just cut and paste them across from the chocolate sheets, from the chocolate breakdown, we've got the prices, we've got the allergens, and then from the recipes we've got the ingredients and the costs and the allergens, and then that pulls all the way across to a menu card where we could just highlight, and we've got things doubled up. So for instance, if we did a ganache that's got dark chocolate and it's already got cocoa butter in it, and then we're going to add cocoa butter to it with something else, then we can just get rid of that other extra line of cocoa butter. So we just got those single ingredients of everything that's in that filling. From that you should be able to get a cost right. Those are the things that you maybe should be looking at the minute. Documenting your designs, so just having a look at what are the designs, what worked well, what went really well, what would I like to do again. Certainly it's a rough drawing, it's not an artist's impression, it's just a rough drawing of the colours that you used and what mould design was it, right? And fairly straightforward, because that will produce a list of colours that you would need to buy. Your menu card would produce a list of ingredients that you would need to buy. And then from that we track back to start looking at the volume. So if I wanted to do, ours are going to be boxes of 15, so there'll be 15 flavours, okay? I might want to do 100 boxes, so I know I'm going to do 3 moulds, right? Sorry, 4 moulds of this size. So I can work out each individually what that's roughly going to cost. They're good things to get on with this time of year. It's really crucial to do some of that little homework stuff in the background right now, just to give you a fighting chance, because I say it's mid-August now. Before you know it, it's going to be mid-September, and then before you know it, in 8 weeks' time, it's going to be mid-October, and you should be well and truly like, I know what I'm going to do, I know what my volumes are, I've got my packaging orders, I've got the tray papers, I've got my outer packaging, I've got my menu cards, I've got the details of what I need to pull through to a menu card, I've got my menu, my recipe breakdown, so I know what it costs to make 100 grams. Or make, you know, if you've got 100 gram cost, you can go up and you can go down from that. What else would you need? Tray inserts, outer postal boxes. It's all these little things that you know, have you got enough bowls? How much chocolate do you need for December? Like as chocolatiers, we need a lot of chocolate, we don't use a lot of chocolate. It's a bit like butter in kitchens, like we use lots, but we didn't sell much. You know, you might discover that you need 25 bags of 823, but you're not going to use all of that. It's just you need to melt that much and temper that much to get the shells that you want. So you would track backwards again. So it's working out the volumes. If you documented what you did last December, like I suggested, you should have a list of what your volumes were. You should have a good idea of what did I sell last year, what worked well, and I should do that again. Might mean that you revamp the design slightly, but would I mess with the fillings? No. Would I do any trendy things? No. Would I try any experimental chocolates? No. Everything that we go to do this Christmas needs to be well rehearsed, and you need to know where you stand at every single point. How much do I need? How much does it cost? Where do I produce it? Where do I store it? What box does it go in? If it's getting posted, have I got outer boxes? Have I got all those bits and pieces? And it's doing that list. Now's the time to do that. Now is the time to do that. And it's one of those kind of, it's a really dull, boring task. But if you are going to do sales, if you've got a plan of doing some good sales in December, and there's no reason you shouldn't, because it's money making time, right? December, you should be able to add at least kind of 10, 20, 30% onto your last year's figures if you're clever. You've still got to start, you've still got to go and find your audience, you've still got to go and find your customers. But people that had them last year, have you got an email address? Have you got a way to contact them? Have you got a way to tell them this is what we're doing this year, this is how much they're going to be, or give them an idea, or try and get pre-orders in if you're doing calendars. If you've got people that ordered last year, would you ping them an email and do like a generic like sales broadcast sheet of this is what we're doing this year, this is when they'll be available, if you'd like to pre-order it's a 10% discount. That really helps in terms of like, now I know what I need to do. Same with calendars, you know, I think you'll find at the start of September, a lot of chocolatiers, they will start promoting the calendars so that as they get through, they can either start making those and freezing those, or they've got a good idea of what they need to buy and store so that when it comes to the calendar production year, they're ready to go. Because those would all go out that week before December, right? These are all the little things, and I guess this is all like just business, isn't it? It's how much do I do. Like if you think you're going to do December by winging it, you're not going to hit your numbers. You're going to run out of stock, or you're going to have surplus. And anything that's surplus left over is inventory on your shelf, so that comes off food cost of sales. You can't factor that in. You know, if you want to see how much money you made in December, you'd have to do a stock take and take that off the sales figure, right? So now's the time to start really thinking about what is it that I want to do? What's the magic number? Do I want to do 100 boxes? Do I want to do 500 boxes? And what's it going to cost to do 500 boxes? How many moulds have you got? How many moulds have you got, and what does that look like? And if it's a box of 12 and it's 6 flavours, how many moulds do I need to do to make 100 boxes? How many moulds do I need to make 50 boxes? If I want to make 100 boxes but I've only got the moulds to do 50, what else do I need to buy? What else do I need to bring into my inventory? Chocolate, sugar, cream is inventory, so are these. Okay, because even I stocked up on these this year. This is all part of, you know, have you got enough of those? Right? These are all the things that just kind of make life a lot easier. Scrapers. You'd be amazed, like you always lose one every single Christmas. Or busy period. It's like, where's my favourite scraper? Gone. Can't find it anywhere. So I will do a post later in the week on some of the things that we should be thinking about for Christmas. On the Chocy Chat page, I'm going to write another breakdown of. We'll do a chocolate ganache with a recipe for a box of 12, and we'll break down all the costs, and I'll pick chocolate like an 811, or we'll do a mix of, maybe we'll do a box of 12 and we'll do 3 flavours with 3 different chocolates and 3 different ganaches, so that you've got a recipe and then a breakdown of how I do those costs. But give me a week or so and I'll get that onto the Chocy Chat page so people can actually start having to think about what would happen, and then on the back end of that, if I'm going to post that, what else do I need to buy, and what would that cost in terms of my figures, right? So we'll do that. I'm wanting to do an almond praline with freeze-dried raspberries, but my sugar keeps getting sticky. Cooked to 180. Can I just use non-caramelized sugar? If your sugar keep... I don't understand the question. So you make an almond praline and you're going to fold dried raspberries into it. I wouldn't... Yeah, like you can... So if you're doing praline, like the traditionalists, I understand the question now. So the traditionalists would tell you it's got to be caramelized sugar, but I don't know. I think things have moved on, right? You could put in powdered sugars. It'd be very sweet. So you're not going to put in 100%. But what that would do is elevate. You know, if you did 25%, so if you had a kilo and you did 250 grams of white sugar, I'd be more inclined to do a powdered sugar than a granulated sugar, or even like a caster sugar. If you did a granulated sugar, it's going to take ages to get that through that mix. It's going to take ages to crush that down. I do a powdered sugar, but I'd put 25 grams, but at least then that will give you 75% nut flavour over 20. Whereas if you do 100%, sorry, if you do 50-50, you've diluted the hazelnut by half. This is a challenge with pralines, my opinion. And for anybody that's done that, the Melange class with me, the challenge that I have with pralines is at the point that we add sugar into it, we've diluted the flavour of the hazelnut. or the almond. And I don't like diluted flavours. I can't stand diluted flavours. Commercially, I understand that adding the sugar will improve the yield, but it halves the flavour. So yeah, you could, I mean, if your sugar's getting sticky, 180, is it 180? Have you checked that? It should be really dark amber at 180. Why not take it to 184, 186, which is very, very dark, but you might find it could be the sugar. Don't use cheap sugar for making caramel. Chef's tip of the day. Hello in Colombia. Been hit with a 65% increase in cocoa butter and 50% increase in chocolate. How is everyone dealing with the constant increases? A real challenge. Don't waste anything. Put your prices up. Customers will expect that. What you don't want to do is lower your prices to win a client, right? That's a different thing altogether. That's discounting. You know, we can all sell £10 notes for £9. Everybody can do that. Put your prices up, and I would start again, Dolce Mara. I would just start looking at what are your recipes, what are you using, get rid of some of the very expensive ingredients. I could walk up this street and ask people what calamansi is. They're like, no idea at all. You know, I tell them what yuzu is, and they're no idea at all. I think it's like a bicycle from the Tour de France. I'd have a look at your fillings. I'd be inclined to do more caramels. You know, the price of chocolate's going up, but we don't need lots, right? I'd have a look at some alternative fillings that are not so much ganache based, that's not so much chocolate heavy. Cocoa butter prices are going up. I feel it. It is crazy. I'm hoping by October we'll start to see a bit more stability in the prices coming down. How long that takes to transfer over to us, I don't know. It's not necessarily the producers, it's the middlemen that are causing this, right? I'm planning on solid chocolates to look like parcels as part of the Xmas offering, and would like to add some spice inclusions and suggestions. Mixed spice is really nice. Do you know what, Paula? I wouldn't do anything too weird and wacky. I would do things that people recognise, right? Because if you start going down the route of like spices like ras al hanout, which is lovely in caramel, it's really, really lovely in caramel. Not everybody kind of either knows what it is or knows how to pronounce it and goes, no, that sounds weird. Does it need spices? Does it need spices? And if you're doing inclusions, keep them Christmassy. There is nothing wrong with putting dried cranberries and a shake of cinnamon on the back of a bar to make it Christmassy, or some orange zest or tangerine zest, or some of the easy peelers, take the zest off that. Don't make things too weird and wacky. You don't need to stand out in the market like that. I think what you need to do is have good value for money in a market of things that people love and would then go and talk about. If you do something that's too weird and wacky, the conversation you don't want them having is, that was weird, that was strange, I'm not buying that again. That's the opposite of what we're trying to achieve, right? James, can you explain a little bit about the role of crystal number 1 and 4 and 6? We know the roles of beta 5. Yeah, do you know, so crystals 1, 2, 3 and 4 generally are fats and sugars in chocolate, right? And they set at different temperatures. They set at very, very different temperatures. They're not very interesting. They don't do anything. We can control them to an extent, but nearly all of them melt below 21 degrees. So, like chocolatiers, they're not hugely relevant to us. The way that crystals form. So if we got these strands, or we got one crystal, as we mix, it will bind to more and more and more, and they almost literally organically grow, right? I don't have any examples of crystal 1. Here we go, there's some examples of crystal 1. There's an example of what crystal 1 would look like. That is a cocoa butter, it's separated, that's affinity silver, but because I've left it, it's set. But in here somewhere, here we go, this is the same one, okay? There is crystal 4, right? So it's formed, so that's crystal 1, it's lumpy and bumpy, and instead of them being nice chains, they're just loops, okay? So you get all these raised surfaces, which look really, really cool, right? Because they look like bath salts. And they'll do different things, because they'll crinkle up like that, right? So that's all crystal, that'll be crystals 1 and 2, mostly. So they're in fats and sugars, and it's just to do with how that forms. if we don't help it along that journey to create the right crystals by cooling fast, we get different things that form, right? So those two are the same because they were at the back, so they were hotter. Those two are the same, right? Because they look like wrinkled up paper. The only reason that I say that that's the other one is that's completely solid in there, but it might pop out. But you can see underneath there, it's not as rough. On the sides, we've got some crystals form. We can see beta 5 on the side there. It's nice and shiny. But at the bottom, we've probably got like crystal 1, crystal 2. Then 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're fats and sugars that are in chocolate. Let's see if there's any more here. So that was one that I obviously tempered. Again, you see the difference in it. This is all on the same shelf. They do make some pretty patterns, don't they? So you get this wrinkled effect, which I think is probably nearer crystal 2. So it was tempered, but then it went above temperature. So those crystals, 1, 2, 3, and 4, generally are fats and sugars in chocolate, and they melt at a low temperature. Chocolate would barely be melted to have an effect on that. Actually, they're the crystals that would form if we just left it alone. And this is what bloom looks like. Bloom it can be one of two things. So it can be fat bloom. As it cools down, we know with the beta crystals, right? So what they do is they shrink. We call it retraction in the shells, but actually what's happening is it shrinks, okay? If it's left on its own and it's not allowed to do anything, it will cool and they will form chains of crystals, but it's going to be one of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pretty unsightly. They don't shrink, they will just fill that mould and they solidify gently. I think the best description of it is if you've ever melted butter, dairy butter. You melt a pan of dairy butter and you leave it on the side to cool down, it forms a bullet hole in the centre. So the outside is really, really rough, and towards the centre you get this little bullseye of liquid. Within all of that is going to be the crystals 1, 2, 3, and 4, including some water that's in there as well, which will adhere to one of the crystals. There's not, I mean, it's worth Googling and having a read about it, but it doesn't do anything for us. So I don't know. They're interesting. I think if you're really geeky, you could go and have a read. But they don't serve a role for us because they melt at such a low temperature. I think, if I remember rightly, I think all of them melt below 21 degrees. Or by 21 degrees they've all melted, right? All those crystals have gone. The beta 5 crystal we know forms, and we can get butter. Like if I took a pan of melted butter, and we used to do this back in the day. We used to make pates, chicken liver pates, and we'd set them in these long bar molds. We would melt butter down and clarify it. Then we'd sit that over ice and we'd just stir constantly, right? While that was cooling down. And what we would do is get that butter to form beta crystals. Just at the point before it's set, we would spread that over the pates, and we would build this white chemise, this white layer on the outside of the pate that created an airtight seal. Sometimes we used to if we had enough of the butter, we'd seal it in there, and it would form butter in a rock hard, I mean, it had a real snap to it. So that was like forming beta crystals. The 6th crystal, so what happens with these is, let me show you one that I did today. Have I got any here that I did today? Let me show you. Give me a second. We got one. I don't have any. I don't have any here that I did today. I don't. All right. When these, with the 6th crystal, is that those crystals continue to harden over a period of time. So after 48, 72 hours, those beta 5 crystals, and you'll notice this from chocolate. If you temper some chocolate and you pour it out on a silicone mat, and you leave it overnight because you're going to come back the next day and peel it off, you can break it and it's quite solid. If you then put those pieces into a tub and put a lid on it and you put it away, when you come back again, any of those pieces that you try and break again are even more solid than they were the first time that you broke them. Because after 48, 72 hours, those beta 5 crystals really, really tighten up and they become much, much more solid. I see it when I make these, because when we initially make these, they will rattle, okay. But if you see on the top ring there, so that top layer is that top ring there is where it was filled to, okay, and then it's shrunk. I don't have any here today. Have I got one there? No, they're in the other workshop. That little ring stays there for quite some time, but after 3 or 4 days you can see this shrinking. Now there's not less volume in there, it's not dehydrated. What it's done is shrink and pull itself in together. That's what the 6th crystal will do over a long period of time. So they will tighten. They're microscopic movements. I mean, they are really, really small movements. The other thing that happens is, there was one that I had today. I was doing a bottle today. I'm just going to take the lid off a couple of these. What happens is, as that continues to shrink, it pushes up. So you end up with this kind of stalactite, right? Sticking up through the mould. You might have seen it if you get the cocoa butters from me. That normally happens after, is there one there? That normally happens after 5 or 6 days. So despite tempering these and then putting them on the side and they fully crystallise, they then retract from that, they retract from there so that they move. Okay, and then what you see form is these little stalactites that come off the top. They're constantly moving, and there are constantly things happening, and it's microscopic, but you can see it in your chocolate. This is why I absolutely never recommend that you paint the moulds and then shell and then leave them in moulds. I know somebody answered this on the Chocy Chat page the other day, and they said that they will they'll paint the moulds, they'll shell the moulds, wrap this in cling film and store that in the fridge. That chocolate is continuing to retract and get smaller and smaller and smaller and shrink, okay. When we heat cocoa butter up and chocolate up, it expands, and when we cool it down, it shrinks, right, because the molecules get bigger, or the fat molecules get bigger. There's also air in there, that dissipates, that makes the amount smaller. I would never shell and wrap that up and store it, because that chocolate's constantly moving. So you might find that you get very broad gaps in those edges. So maybe it works, maybe you fill them, but when you go to cap, all the chocolate's going to go down the edge between the shell. So where you cap, it's going to go down this bit here in the mould, and it's going to cap the top, and it's going to look pretty crap. Hope I answered that. You can have a read. Crystals 1, 2, 3 and 4, they're fats and sugars in chocolate. They're not very interesting, they're not very cool. I don't, certainly the way I teach, I could make it very scientific, I could make it sound very, very complicated. We could start talking about polydisaccharides, we could talk about all sorts of things, but if it's lost on the student, all it's done is made the instructor sound cool, right? And I'm not really into that, it's not my thing. We have people here on classes from every walk of life. Some are doctors, we had a surgeon, we've had, you name it. They just need to be able to understand it so they can then go home and make it without some of the unnecessary jargon. I don't tend to talk to students about crystals 1, 2, 3 and 4 because they're of no help, right? They don't do anything that's to our advantage. Actually, my whole life, for everybody here as well on Chocy Chat, your life is about, as chocolatiers anyway, your life is about protecting beta crystals, right? And we all know what happens if you don't look after beta crystals, right? So if you warm them up too aggressively, you'll melt them. I talked to you all about it being, you know, if we took an x-ray of chocolate, it would look like a mass of candy floss, and it's very, very delicate. And the reason I say candy floss is, you know, it's this huge voluminous mass, right? But if you grab a handful of it and put it in your mouth and it's warm, it disappears to nothing. If any of you have ever been to a fun fair and had candy floss and unfortunately it's rained, we did this with the girls years ago. 1 second you're holding a big thing of candy floss and a drop of rain hits it and it... So where did it go? Did I drop it? So that's how kind of sensitive they are, I think, at beta crystals. What you need to do is the beta 5 crystal is protect it in its warm up. So we do it gently, and during its cool down we need rapid fast cool down to make those crystals form, then protect that temperature when we're shelling, and then drop that temperature so we can cause all those crystals that are all linked to shrink, and then over a period of time, that chocolate's, you know, 48, 72 hours and then on, that chocolate will become much more brittle, which is why shelling is important, capping is important, because if we don't do those two things properly, when that chocolate continues to retract and shrink, you're going to be left with huge holes, right? So I hope I didn't overcomplicate that. Vandana, if we are just starting business, how to calculate quantity of your moulds? I don't have a calculator. Somebody's got a calculator. Somebody's got a calculator there. These are 13 gram moulds. They're 13 gram moulds because that's what the information told me, or the manufacturer told me. If I filled that with chocolate and I scraped it, if I weigh that mould, okay, and then I fill it with chocolate, before I do anything, if I scrape off the excess and then I weigh that again, I'll take the weight mould and then look at what that difference is, and that'll give me the mould weight, okay. If I then tap all of that out, okay, and scrape it, so I've got my shells, and then I weigh that, that will give me the shell weight, okay. So I can tell you that I need 407 grams to fill this, but I always calculate on 440. So I always say I need 440 grams to fill this one. And then when I've tapped it out, my shells, I did it live on here, I think they're like 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, right? And that's for a 4-drop chocolate. And it would be different for a 3-drop chocolate. It'd be different for different brands. So I know that like the shell weight's kind of around about, there's 32, and then, you know, I'll call it 60 to keep it even. So I use 60 grams of chocolate to shell that. I need 440, but what's left after I've tipped everything out, I've got 60 grams of chocolate. The quantities are just really backtracking and knowing your weights. This is why generally we always use the same size mould, or the same, like the same shape mould, so that we can just calculate things a little bit easier, make life a little bit easier. Also, with your recipe, almost certainly my recipes, they all work around one mould. So if I need 5 moulds, it's easier to just times it by 5 and do it that way. What I don't want is a recipe that fills a mould and a half, or a mould and a third. So you can, you know, you just got to keep weighing things and measuring things, and make sure you write them down, and eventually with rehearsal and continuous work, eventually, you know, you'll get an idea of you know, it's same for me when I'm blending the butters. Like, I kind of know what 30 litres is, right? I know if, you know, what the yields are for all the mixes, right? So it's no different, right? Oh, happy days, Xmas packaging and advent calendars. Stuart at the Blind Chocolatier, he is well ahead on everybody with prep for Christmas. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, right? True story. Just take some time, sit down, write some stuff out. Give a shout out to people on Chocy Chat crew. Ping me a message, by all means. Put it on the Chocy Chat page. If you're truly not sure, write down your ideas. Don't worry about competition. Don't worry about giving away secrets. There's not, like, certainly everybody in Chocy Chat, we're all trying to help each other, me included, right? So I read things on there and go, that's a really good idea. They're a constant source of either being inspired or being inspirational or help. So if you're stuck and you're, you know, how would you go about weighing this? How would you go about, you know, calculating your fillings? I'm going to do a post in a couple of weeks' time, which I'll put on the Chocolate Chat page because it's a document, right? So it's really wonderful. Love that spice. Thank you, James, for educating me on that spice. Oh, Ras Halanu. Ras Halanu means top of the drawer. So spices come in different fragrances. All spices are different, but what we would call the top drawer is generally like the sweet spices. So the sweet spices are that, you know, they are cinnamon, clove. Then we have the next kind of level of, like, what I call oily spices. So nutmeg, peppercorns. They've got a little bit of bite, but then below that we've got the really, really spicy heated ones. Ras Halanu just means top of the drawer, so it's all the sweet spices off the top of that drawer. It's lovely in caramel. It's really, really nice in caramel. I absolutely adore Ras Halanu in caramel. It goes really, really well. Absolutely really well. Hi Linda, you're in Colorado. Say hi to Leanne for me. And Mr. Zardos, say hello to him. Fat Dogs Chocolates, how are you? Tuning in from Texas. Hello there. Who else we got? It's a bit light on questions tonight. Nobody wants a fancy bites by Nancy. She's in Fredericton. She does some lovely stuff. Nancy, how's the panning going? I saw a post, but it was a few days too late. Where you were panning and you had all those straight edges on, what that is if the panning machine is going too fast, okay, what happens is they go up that first corner, they drop and bounce. So what you've got, all those little flat spots. We used to have panning. I mean, I haven't done panning for like, it's got to be 17, 18 years. Got a plan to start doing it. Shh, don't tell anyone. So if the drums went too fast when we were at that stage, right, because the chocolates, because you're putting untempered chocolate in, if it's going too fast, what you should do is just get a big tea towel and put it on the back of the pan and just slow it down a tiny bit. Probably didn't do very good for the motor, but that is our only way to do it, because we had one panning machine and it's like, it's on its slowest speed, but it's absolutely screaming ahead. So, and what I noticed is that when they tumble too fast, especially if there are baffles in it, it's even worse because it can slice them in half. If you slow the pan down, you end up with a smoother roll rather than dropping them to the bottom because the pan's turning too fast, right? Happy days. Everybody's been really quiet tonight. There's hardly any questions tonight. I think I shared a lot of information there, haven't I? So I wanted to show you one of the gifts in life, I think. This is my own philosophy, right? Is the quest of learning. I was talking to the girls about this at dinner, right? Because obviously they ate all the chocolates that I was sent to taste. That's me being sarcastic. Lowest form of wit, sarcasm. The quest to learn new things, and I've had quite a colourful career in food. And just at the point that you think you've mastered something comes along and then opens your eyes again, or you see an idea, or you see, you get inspired by an ingredient, or like I was just talking about ras al hanout, and it's kind of Moroccan Arabic spice, but it's really, really fragrant, and it's kind of something I've always known about. But I think that I had a young man from Australia who brought me some quite amazing things. This is peppermint gum. For anybody that's down there in Oz, you will know what this is, because I've never heard of it, and I'm really excited to give these a go. That one's called peppermint gum. Fairly strong peppermint aroma. Infuse it in tea, creams, or desserts or sauces. This is a taste of Australia, bush food, right? So imagine wild foraging. I had to go off and Google a load of things, and like it took me down a rabbit hole of absolute, I want to call it escapism, because I love food, I love flavours, and this constant quest to be informed and learn and do all these things, I think it's what makes good human beings, right? The nicest conversations I've had with people are the ones that are well travelled and well eaten, right? Who've travelled a little bit and come across other cultures and tried new things, and because I just think it makes life a little bit more interesting, right? So when somebody, you know, I've got Davidson plum, never heard of it, but he's like really like sour cherry. We opened it and it's like a bag of cherries, and these are just wild bush herbs, right? Rosella, so that's a rhubarb stroke raspberry flavour. These are just wild herbs, so I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do a collection with some of these. He's brought me a Paul, the Flying Banana. He was here on a class and he bought some gifts for all of us to try. Absolutely amazing, because it's just, what it's done is just made me go and research a little bit more about, you know, I think I know a lot about herbs and spices. Then I go to another continent where they have completely different stuff. It's like, now I need to know more. That constant quest to find new things. It's like this viral Dubai bar at the minute. I know lots of people having a go at it, but you know, for anybody that knows Middle Eastern cuisine, it's like, it's been around a long, long time. Nothing new about it at all. Nothing new. All right, Nancy said no, thank you. It turned out KitchenAid, so basically 1 speed, and if I turn it to number 2, it goes too fast. And all the nuts pipe, yeah. Nancy, if it's worked, I would just put I'd put a cloth on the drum and just try and slow it down until you get, you know, once you built up enough stock, and that's because they are money. Panning machines are money makers, right? They are money makers. You can get good yield for it. You can make a lot of product in a very short space of time once you've got the knack of it, of layering the chocolate in and cooling it. I get that machine to make you the money to buy the new machine, right, which will speed things up even more. But nothing wrong with a KitchenAid one. It's just that, like, it's just a little bit too fast, right? It's hard to slow it down. Speed number 1 is like, it's too fast, and speed number 2, you know, you get the angle of that wrong and you're decorating the street with like little bits of nuts, right? But use that machine, slow it down with a cloth on the side, just a little bit of pressure with a cloth on the side of the drum, right? We used to do this. Not a dry cloth as well, not a wet one. A dry cloth on the side. It won't add too much friction to that circulating drum. It will slow it down enough so that you don't, basically you bruise the chocolate, so you get all these little flat spots on it, which can kind of look cool, but not if that's not what you were looking for. Good money maker. Any advice to market the chocolates to corporates? You got to go, you know what, you got to go knock on doors. You've got to make an entry. You've got to find a contact, whether that is somebody that deals with corporate hospitality, or whether that is a PA to a business, or an HR manager, or whatever, divisional manager. Go and knock on doors. They ain't going to come and find you. Nobody sat in a corporate office is trailing the internet looking for a chocolatier locally. Rarely happens. What you need to do is take some samples, knock on a door, and feed them the idea that they can buy these chocolates for their staff for Christmas, and that they would be supporting a local business, right? You've got to go knock on doors. You have to go and find, I say this over and over and over and over and over, you have to go and find your customers. And how you do that is you do markets, you do tags, you do, if a TV show, you know, learn to say yes to everything but not no to anything, right? So, you know, Ron's Bonbons is an example. He did a TV show. They literally phoned him like on the Sunday and said, do you want to come and do TV on Tuesday? And it's like, yeah, is the answer. Yeah, I'll come and do it. Because the worst thing that could happen is I get in front of thousands and thousands of people. And if I get put in front of 10,000 people, all I need is 1% to come back and do a purchase, right? A lot can change in a moment. A lot can change in a year. A lot can change based on one decision. So you have to go and knock on doors. You have to go and speak to HR managers. You need to go and tell your story. You need to connect yourselves to that business and why should they buy from you. You have to go and find your customers. You have to find your customers. There is enough room for all of us, trust me. It's a big ball of dirt we spin around on. There is enough room for all of us. Even if a town's got 4 or 5 chocolatiers in it, there is enough room for all of us, trust me. Different budget, different costs, different flavours, different connection with the story. People buy with empathy and connection now. We know this since COVID, right? People kind of want to know the story behind it. You can't be just a pair of hands that makes chocolate anymore. You need to be the face behind it and have the confidence. Plus, if you're running your own business, for everybody that's running their own business at home at the moment, you are the chocolatier, you're the accountant, you're the salesperson, you're the marketing person, you're the washer-upper, you are the procurement officer, you're the CEO, you're everything, right? And that means you've got to go and knock on doors. And I've said this regularly, right? So I'm going to say this one again. Half of your time should be spent running your business. And running your business is finding customers, finding better prices, finding better products, finding solutions. And then the other half of your business is making stuff, right? And it's hard at the beginning. It's very, very hard at the beginning. But you have to do it. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? There's lots of people with great experience here on Chocy Chat. There are people that started here with me at the beginning, 2.5, 3 years ago. First go at chocolate. And I've talked to lots of businesses this week who are just off. And the conversations, you know, we have our monthly catch-ups or quarterly catch-ups where they will book an hour and we'll just go through what's happened and what's the plan. And you look at what they were doing a year ago and then 2 years ago, and it's just massively staggering how far. But it's all come from the hard work of going to find their customers, whether that's breweries, coffee shops, garden centres, online communities, going to markets, going to stalls, going to events, going to shows. You've got to go and find your customers because they ain't going to come and find you, not easily. Word of mouth will spread, but there is nothing like going to actually find your customers, right? And you have to put a lot of work into that, and that's business, right? Kelly, I'm cutting and sugaring some pâte. Was curious about which gelling agent that will remelt in heat again. I've requested, you want yellow pectin is thermo-reversible, right? So we use it for making jellies and things, right? But yes, it's exactly that. Do you know, Nancy, that's a good answer. It's a good machine to learn on. Yeah, that is a really good answer, because you know what? You'll learn more from what didn't go right by having to do corrections to make it go right. That at the point that you get a big panning machine, you'll turn it on and you will be away because you won't have had to suffer some of those issues, right? So it's not bad sometimes to do something wrong, because it should prompt you to go and do some research to find out why, right? Link to the bowls. Those ones, Morrison's, and I've got these silicone stretchy lids that go over them, right? I don't go in for this super duper like named brand bowls, or like, you know. I teach chocolatiering to home-based businesses. I don't go like, well, I'm in a factory now, look at me, I started in a shop. I started at home, I'm still at home, I still make chocolate at home, I still run a business from home. Despite being a different workshop when it comes to this kind of stuff. I teach chocolatiering, and I buy and use the equipment that chocolatiers at home would have to use, right? So all the kit that we've got to make chocolates with is purchasable. You don't need to be a big corporation, so... right, it's that time of day. I am going to go. It's gone 9:30. I'm going to share this. I'm going to just have a think about some of the questions tonight, but what I might do is just do the tagline on this is just to say that it's episode 146, Christmas planning. All right, so I will repost this one and then share this to stories and then to YouTube to give people an idea of what should we be thinking about with Christmas. So okay, I'm gonna get away. Have a lovely week. Thank you for tagging me and stuff. If you sent me chocolates, all that kind of thing, thank you. We appreciate all of it. All the orders are coming through. It's getting really busy on the cocoa butter front right now, so you need to get a good idea of what it is that you need for Christmas. At least have some volumes. I think we're well and truly stocked up, and we're going to keep going. So it's all good. I should have some news about the Cocoa Pearls shortly as well, in terms of the date that they're going to be about. Have a lovely week. It's nice to see everybody. Be nice to people, especially those closest to you, right? Have a good one. Chocy Chat crew. If you joined, you are Chocy Chat crew. Okay. Bye-bye.